Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to a breaking news later on. It's not late, but late-ish on Sunday night edition of
late
the
to
Orange.
me.
I mean, I could go to sleep. It's the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. It's the two old guys, Jeff and Jason, breaking down the breaking news. Texas offensive line target, but now officially a commitment. Nate Kibble announces his commitment to the Longhorns within like the last 5 minutes. Jason, it's the first of what we expect to be a slew of commitments over the course of the next few weeks, months, coming out of what most people feel was like a really successful weekend for the Longhorns in terms of who came in for official visits and where the Longhorns stand with their primary targets.
Yeah, pretty eventful weekend. I mean, you had Jarrett Gibson committing yesterday. We did one of these videos yesterday for him. Nate Kibble commits today. There was a commitment on Friday that hasn't come out yet. So boom, boom, boom. We got 3 days straight of actual.
Gibson feels like a week ago.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Yesterday and today it's been a crazy day. And I barely left my house at all today, or my office, except to go get Cane's, plug for Cane's, for dinner tonight. But yeah, it does feel like forever ago, man. That was what, 30-ish hours ago, and it feels like 2 weeks ago. But yeah, Nate Kibble, he actually committed today, early today, and just announced it just moments ago. And you're right, I'm expecting several more to come out. Some guys have actual dates of when they're going to do it. Other guys are still trying to figure that out. So we can't always pinpoint the exact date, but definitely more are coming. More announcements are on the way for sure.
Now with Kibble, can we tell the story now? Is it
too
soon?
Yeah. It was pretty funny. I'll tell it. So today, as I always do, I'm just making the calls through a list of visitors. And usually I start at about noon because that's when these visits wrap up. Well, today I noticed some guys were like leaving campus at like 11 o'clock and down at the airport and stuff. So I was like, man, some of these visits are wrapping up a little earlier, maybe because they had so many guys on campus. Yep. I don't know. But so anyways, I'm going through the calls, and I call Nate, and I haven't talked to Nate a lot because Texas, they were offered him a long time ago and they really weren't in the picture for a while. But so I called Nate, awesome kid, by the way, first and foremost, but I'm talking to him. I'm just doing just a standard interview catch. And I just said, okay, where do things stand after this weekend? And he goes, well, honestly, this is where I'm going to go. I'm committing. And I said, wait a second. I said, all right. He said, so this is where I'm going to go. I don't think he used the words. I said, so you're committed? And he goes, well, yeah. He goes, I'm committed. So we're talking, and I go, okay. And I'm, so let me get a couple commitment quotes from you. And I said, I won't run them until you announce, but I said, just pretend, it's whatever, 7 o'clock and you made your announcement. How does it feel? Why Texas? Da, da, da. And then he goes, well, actually, technically, he goes, I'm not committed yet. He goes, I haven't talked to Sark or Coach Blood yet. So I go, wait a second, you're giving me this scoop before the Texas coaches even know. He goes, yeah. So, and then of course, word starts to kind of trickle out behind the scenes, and I'm texting sources. I'm like, hey, FYI, you guys be ready because this is going down. And I mean, he's a player that we haven't written a lot about, like I said, because he kind of faded off the radar and then came back on pretty quickly. But I mean, Texas really likes Nate Kibble from what I can gather. And, I think Kyle Flood, first offensive line piece, first of, I think 3 or 4 he'll probably get in this class. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting story. I was like, man, I'm actually hearing about your commitment before the Texas coaches even hear about your commitment. So kudos to Nate Kibble for trusting this old fart, and ended up working out well. So.
And kudos to you for just being Johnny on the spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of luck involved, of course. Like I said, I was calling all 20 of the guys, and like
thanks, Nate.
Yeah, man, you don't ever know how many are going to answer, or who's going to, or who's not. And Nate was just generous enough. He was sitting in his hotel room. He had not had his meeting with Sark yet. He was sitting in his hotel room at the Four Seasons, and took my call and gave me an interview and told me he's going to commit when he meets with Sark. And here we are about 9 hours later, and it's finally out in public. So,
Jason, here are Kibble's an interesting guy to talk about, both from a physical profile standpoint and from a ranking standpoint. So here's the deal. If you look at he hasn't promoted himself on Twitter very much at all. If you go to his Twitter page, you can go from today to January pretty quick. Like, there's just not a lot in between. And I think he only went online to report his Oregon offer. But he's got an offer from LSU. He's got an offer from Oklahoma. He took an official visit to A&M. So clearly the major powers in this region, along with Oregon, who knows how many more offers he might have. They really like him. The other recruiting services, so Rivals has him as a high 3-star, number 92 in Texas. On3 has him as the number 79 in Texas. 24/7 has him as the number 127 in Texas. The one kind of outlier is ESPN. They have him at number 39 and number 227 overall nationally. But, that means they think he's a low 4-star and these other rankings are high 3-stars. There's not a huge difference. So, in your mind, what's your gut tell you with this commitment? What does it mean? How big of a priority would he have been, given that they're still waiting on other offensive linemen and he's the first to jump aboard? The floor is yours.
He's not going to move the needle the way Kelvin Banks did 2 years ago, obviously. But, all I can tell you is college coaches seem to like him a lot. I've seen him at camps. It was about over a year ago. I saw him at camps. He performed well there. You put on the tape, he plays a lot of tackle, but he moves pretty well. I mean, he's going to be an interior guy for Texas. He's not your traditional big human, the way Kyle Flood usually goes out and gets them. We've got him in our database. I'm looking 6'2", 306, which kind of by Kyle Flood standards is smaller than most, So he's going to be an interior guy for Texas. Texas had a couple other offensive linemen on campus this weekend, or several other offensive linemen, but a couple others in particular that they still feel really good about. Those guys are probably Daniel Cruz he's a guy that they're recruiting at center. This Saina kid is he's a guy I think can be a swing player, but Texas feels really good about where they stand with both of those guys. But to get Nate Kibble, I mean, you got to get that first piece, right? And then you kind of build around him. So, to get Nate on campus, kind of came up pretty quickly. I mean, and Nate said, "Hey, man," I said, "What led you to Texas?" And he said, "It was Kyle Flood." He goes, "We just talked about his history, his development of people like me and getting them to the league." And Coach Flood said, "Hey, I've done it with this guy, I've done it with that guy, and I can do it with you too." So, it's not going to be a commitment catch that makes national headlines necessarily, but I think it's a good piece. Kyle Flood just continues to kind of reload that offensive line, and I expect he'll take 4 or 5 linemen again this year when this cycle is over. And I think Nate Kibble's a nice place to start.
It's interesting because if you look at his size, he's probably got like a low 3-star size. I mean, 6'2", 306. That might mean if he's barefoot, he's 6'1.5". Like, anytime we're talking about linemen, really any prospect, it's hard to officially get height and weight because when were those things entered into the database? How was it used? Guys can grow. He's 6'2", 306 though. So let's say that's like low 3-star size. I think from an athleticism standpoint, he's probably a 3-star. He's not a terrible athlete, but he's not elite. But if we're talking about run blocking and like nastiness in the run game, he might be a national top 50 kind of a guy in those 2 areas. So what you have is an undersized, slightly under-athletic guy who has enough athleticism, though. He's just, he's not a dancing bear out there. But, boy, the one thing he does, and I put this in my headline for my instant analysis, he wants to bury guys into the ground. And that is the trait that has to have won Kyle Flood over. He's so good in the run game and so dominant and so forceful that in that area of the game, he blocks like he's 6'7", 350. So I'm fascinated to see how they use him because from a physical standpoint, he is different than the Flood prototype. Usually you tell me Flood offers a guy, he's at least 6'5", and there's no weight that's too much for him to weigh. So if he's 3'7", 400 pounds, I'm like, sounds like a Kyle Flood guy.
And you think about some of the, guys that they've taken recently, interior guys too. I mean, they're, Cam Williams, is a guy they took to play interior. Yes, he might play tackle, but he's a guy that everybody thought would probably be an interior guy. Connor Stroh, Kojo. I mean, these guys are all like 6'6", 330, 350-ish. So different profile, certainly for Nate Kibble, but like you said, he's got a little mean streak to him. Comes from a really good program too at Atascocita. Nice kid away from the field, but you get him on the field, he's got a little nasty streak. And like you said, I'm sure that has Coach Flood and these other coaches, those O-line coaches love that when they put on the film and see a guy not just getting a guy on the ground and getting him on the ground, then they want to fall on top of him.
It's so bad.
Those are the kind of guys college offensive line coaches love. So
I feel bad for guys that he knocks to the ground because he does the splash. Like he gets, if you watch his highlight film on Huddle, you'll see several times when defenders try to get up after they've been pancaked, where they are just furious at the extra little bit that he threw in there. And it's that extra little bit that he throws in there that really makes him, I think, a player that not just Texas, but Texas A&M, Oklahoma, LSU, Oregon, you name it, why they would want him as a player. I also wonder, and this just crossed into my mind, so we know how dangerous saying things out loud before they've been vetted can be, but I think I'm okay here. I wonder if deep down in their souls, if he doesn't make it as an offensive lineman under Flood, if they think he can make it over at nose tackle. Because if I just saw the guy in a uniform and you asked me, where on the football field does this guy play, I would say on defense over the center. And I wonder, worst case scenario, if they think in a couple of years from now, when he's built, he's bigger than he is today, he's stronger than he is today, if for any reason it doesn't work out, you've got worse things on your hand than a guy that, if you took his skill set and traits and body type over to nose tackle, I think we both would go, yeah, no, I can totally close my eyes and see that guy, lining up over the center and being a hellacious guy to have to deal with.
Yeah, could be. I mean, we're talking 2, 3, 4 years down the road, but he's not.
I just made that up in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I mean, I don't think that's their intention by taking him, certainly, but yeah, who knows what the future holds. And, he's going to have to come in to a really talented offensive line. Kyle Flood's always going to recruit well. So, not just Nate, all these guys that they're taking along on the offensive line, there's going to be some steep competition. So if he does come in and turns into be a plus player for Texas, he's going to have to come in and earn it.
Caught you off guard with that one. All right, Jason, before like I said, sometimes I just think things up in my head and I say them out loud. The weekend as a whole, it will be remembered as the Colin Simmons weekend. Take a couple of minutes before we wrap up to simply tell us what's in your brain from this weekend.
Yeah, I'm actually knee deep in a kind of recruiting notebook, if you will, of all the guys that came in. So people watching this video, I encourage them to head over to orangebloods.com. At some point tonight, I'll have that posted, hopefully, next hour or so, I'd hope. But what's in my head is just a tremendously successful weekend overall. You've talked to people, I've talked to people that feel like Texas is now the team to beat for Colin Simmons. It's funny, in every person I've talked to, it's the same story. Hey, I think Texas is a team to beat, but there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still going to be some twists and turns and other visits. And, nobody thinks that the nail is in the coffin there by any means, but Texas did what, you and I talked last week and you said, hey, what do I feel like needed to come out of this weekend? I said, I feel like Texas has to be the leader for Colin Simmons and hold on to that position. That's what I'm hearing has happened. Obviously the Jarrett Gibson commitment was huge. You said it, we're waiting on a couple other commitments from this weekend. I think we'll go down in the next week or so. I mean, I'll have that notebook posted. I've talked to, texted, DM'd, communicated with not everybody, of course. Colin Simmons declined to do interviews, but most of the guys that were on campus this weekend, every one of them raved about the visits, which is kind of standard. We usually hear that, but the thing that was kind of uniform to me that most of these recruits are saying, it's just a different vibe. And I've talked to some parents too, and they say, these coaches, they just have a genuine feel to them. It's not a lot of BS. It's not, a lot of salesmanship. There's just a genuine feel to these coaches, and the recruits feel it, parents feel it. So again, I think this staff does it. We've said this before. They do a great job when they get guys on campus. It was more of the same this week. And by and large, I think across the board, Texas elevated its position with everybody on that was on campus this weekend. Now, are they going to get everybody? Are they going to get Daniel Calhoun out of Georgia? I'm not predicting that. Are they going to get Terry Bussey? I'm not predicting that, but I did talk to Terry and Calhoun gave us an update too. I mean, both those guys love their time. Still work to be done on a lot of these guys, but they certainly put a good foot forward this weekend. The Texas staff did.
All right, I'm going to help you. The last thing, I'm going to help you with the story that you're writing. I'm going to give you not necessarily in order because I haven't written this down and I'm kind of making this up in my head as we go. So who knows? I may end up trying to convince you that the most recent commitment, Nate Kibble, will be playing nose tackle in 2 years. So here we go. Here are my headlines. Just tell me if you agree, disagree. The number one headline is Colin Simmons leaves his visit leaning to Texas.
He hasn't publicly said that, but I believe that's true. You believe it's true? Yes, that's probably the biggest headline. 2,
and maybe just as important as 1, there's still a long way to go with Colin Simmons. It's almost 6 months until December.
Yeah, that's true. And he does have an LSU visit scheduled for the fall. I think he'll probably take several other visits in the fall. But you know what? You'd rather be playing from ahead than playing catch up. So, I mean,
I didn't say anything about any of that stuff. I just said there's a long way to go.
Yes, there's a long way to go. And I expect still more movement than Colin Simmons race.
Unless 6 months isn't a long time. And you and I are both at the age now where 6 months doesn't seem like a long time. You and I have lived a lot of 6 months. Number 3. Interesting. I guess Kobe Black, Jarrett Gibson, Corey and Gibson, all future Longhorns.
I'm going fact on that. I feel obviously Gibson's already committed. Kobe Black, people I talk to think he's in the bag. Kobe hasn't talked today. He's been pretty quiet. Corey and Gibson, he's a little tougher to read. In fact, I've got another call to make on him here in a few minutes. That Clemson, the draw of Clemson was and is still very strong, but the fact that he hasn't committed, everybody thought, he flat out told me he was probably going to commit to Clemson on or before his official visit. That didn't happen. There are people in his circle, what I've been told, that want him at Texas. I think Texas is getting Corey and Gibson. I think they're getting all 3 of those guys you mentioned.
What's interesting about that, I mean, there are a lot of things interesting about Gibson's situation, and we're talking about Gibson with a P, not Gibson with a B, who committed yesterday. We had people on Orangebloods who were convinced that Gibson was going to commit today because it was his birthday.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it didn't quite happen. I mean,
it's never been, I don't know where that came from. I mean, listen, it's recruiting. Anything can happen, but that's never been publicly or privately stated. I'm keeping an eye on July 1st for Corey and Gibson. Just keep an eye on that date. And nothing is finalized, but that's a pretty good estimate. It'll be right around there.
I was just going to say, it kind of goes in line with, there have been times when people have thought they knew when he was going to commit. He might commit before his Clemson visit. The timing of when his commit might happen has moved. It seems like the goalposts have moved a few times. That he still hasn't announced isn't necessarily a bad thing for Texas, but
I think it's a great thing for Texas. I mean, if he would have made his decision in the last few months, it was going to be Clemson.
I just meant that he didn't commit today. I was going to say he's kind of his situation kind of goes in line with everyone else. There's a specific day for a specific reason that's personal to them, and and some of these cases, the Texas coaches want them to be on different days to kind of spread some of these things out. But he's kind of symbolic of this group in general, which is relax, everything's okay. But we didn't get 8 commitments today, which is the way a lot of people kind of look at a successful weekend. By the end of Sunday night, how did it look? Texas got 2 commitments this weekend. More will surely come. So I would probably give this weekend just a flat out A, not an A+, not an A-, just an A. Last comment. What about you?
man, I'm borderline A plus, man. I mean, they didn't land Colin Simmons. I mean, I'm thinking what's the one thing that would make it an A plus, but I didn't expect.
I thought they'd flipped Busey or Bussy.
Yeah,
I would have at that point called it an A plus.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. It was a great visit, Terry told me when he and I talked. But yeah, they didn't flip him. He's not even going to release the top 5 until July. Oh man, I'm a pretty tough grader by and large. You guys all know that whenever we do these kinds of things. So I'm not going to go A plus. I'm in line with you. I'll go just a flat out A.
95 will get you into almost any college in America. It's okay. not
beat that into my kids' brain.
To have 100.
Yeah, kids, listen to what Jeff Ketchum says. Yeah, that's right.
Hey guys, do us a solid. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments. Someone called me Hall of Fame worthy, among the very best. I don't know.
El Presidente, catch #1 mod. What's up with that? What's up with all the work I've been doing on these recruiting?
Well, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that Mark didn't mean that. Like, I'm so used to catching shrapnel that if somebody were to give me in a real mod poll, I think El Presidente votes for Anwar. And I don't quite know what, I can't remember who. Somebody called me out for my neck yesterday. I hope that wasn't Mark.
I must admit.
Anyway, fellas, we appreciate you being here. Thank you for either the kind or not so kind. Not exactly sure, but I'll just take them all as kind comments. For myself and Jason Sukumo, we got a little bit more work to do tonight. I'll be back tomorrow with the Monday Overreaction show. I'm not sure if Anwar. Hey, Blake, do we know if Anwar is back tomorrow or not? I don't think he is. I think he's off tomorrow, at which point I'll take care of Monday Overreaction. Don't worry. He'll be back this week, though.
My man Kevin Ellison, Jason's a goat. Yeah, Kevin, lunch on me next time I see you, buddy.
Thanks, Mom. Hey, begging for the comments is never not warranted. If it gets it done, it gets it done. For Jason and myself, though, you guys have a good rest of the Sunday night. I think I'm going to go watch The Bear if I can get that in.